Hey, welcome back, my loyal followers. The Alarmist has a very interesting guest, Alan Chapell. He's not just a musician, but he's also a New York technology attorney. This guy knows all sides of the business, and he's done some amazing things. A record with the Talking Heads, Jerry Harrison. But he's also been lampooned on Silicon Valley. The man has talent, and that is for sure. Here we are with our great interview we're going to have, Alan Chapell. Nice to meet you, Alan. I'll be at a few hiccups. You're an interesting rare breed. You are a New York musician and a technology attorney. Am I correct?
I am. I've been playing music since I was 3. Sometime in my mid-20s, I realized that I might not be able to make a living.
I've been there.
So I went and studied human rights law, and then landed in a place where I work with a bunch of tech companies on privacy issues.
And so your specialty is privacy.
My specialty is privacy, yeah.
Which we have none right now, I'm sure.
It's pretty close to that, yeah.
And how does that make you feel as a human being, and also as an attorney? Do you have two separate responses?
Well, I think as a human being, you really have to be conscious. Particularly, I've got 2 kids. One of them's only 18 months, and the world that she's growing up in is going to be one where every single thing that you do, somebody's going to be looking over your shoulder. And I think that's just the reality. I think that horse is out of the barn, and so the question becomes, what can you do to protect yourself? And unfortunately, the way things are set up in most cases, your goal here is it's the onus is on the individual person, the consumer, to protect themselves.
I mean, I've even seen Mark Zuckerberg do interviews where there's tape over his camera and his laptop. I mean, for him to do that, that's kind of an admission of guilt.
Well, he recognizes how the technology works, and so as a result, I think he understands. You got to be vigilant.
You have a it's a song, I think, called I Am Zook.
So I wrote a few years ago sort of this parody confessional of Mark Zuckerberg. And so you said, he knows what's going on. He put cape in front of the camera. The idea was that, if I were Mark Zuckerberg and I was kind of speaking to the audience, I was in a play about the Facebook story, I'd look at the audience and I'd say, hey, here's what's really going on.
Wow.
And so that was sort of the idea.
And when was that recorded?
That came out about 4 years ago. So this was, before a lot of the current round of hoopla around Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, the bigger they get, and they keep getting bigger, the more control they seem to want, But in my case, I mean, I don't really care what they watch or hear of me. I'm nothing to hide. I'm an open book. Maybe I'm a rarity. I don't know. But everybody, you think that we would be less concerned if we weren't always, maybe as a society, trying to hide something?
Well, it could be. The challenge, though, is that when you grant anybody that much control over you, that
we're allowing them to have that control. We've decided to sign up to Facebook. He's been pretty, quid pro quo about what it is to be on his site, and if you don't like it, you don't have to be on it.
Well, that's a fair point. I would say that there are some communities where it's difficult to not be on Facebook. So socially,
we all know being on our iPhones is an addiction. Tim Cook won't talk about it, and the man before him, who was the guy who came up with it, won't talk about it. But I believe it's like digital heroin.
The more people use their devices, my daughter's 18 months and she already just wants to play with my wife's iPhone.
Oh God. Yeah. I know this is, get with the program. This is the society we live in. This is the way it is, and don't try to fight it. But I do know people who don't use any technology and they're just fine.
Yeah.
Do you have debates because of what you do? Do you have debates with people, about the subject?
Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of philosophical discussions around things like, is it okay that Amazon and Google and Apple basically run the entire world? And what do we think about that?
I'm laughing out loud because it's a little late to ask that question. We all know this already, yeah, but
Well,
we don't seem to mind so much.
You can probably remember there was a time when Ma Bell ran everything, and they broke Ma Bell up, and probably that was a good thing for just about everybody, I guess, except for maybe Ma Bell.
And Zuckerberg looks like he's going to escape that for the moment, anyway.
I think he might. Yeah.
I mean, they already said Biden. He's it's real political. Everything seems to be very political.
Right. The one thing to look at, well, maybe there's two things to look at. The first is the people in charge of the Federal Trade Commission at this point have a very clear agenda that they want to rein in big tech. That's absolutely clear. If you look at their records, 3 of the 5 sitting FTC commissioners, have that as their background. But that gets me to point 2. The problem is that the Federal Trade Commission is not super well funded. And so unless Congress is going to fund them, their ability to enact, whatever change that they think is necessary is going to be hampered.
Costs a lot of money. That's why when people say I'm going to sue you, they don't realize when you want to do that, it costs money to sue someone. It costs money to enforce change because it means riding them over a period of time until they do it, and nobody does it right away.
Right.
What has been as an attorney, because I'm very interested in the subject, what can you talk about any case that you've had that has really, because you're talking about privacy, so has there been anything that you've been having to deal with where you really had to take a close look at it and say, wow, I don't know how I feel about it, or wow, we got to change this?
Well, I'll tell you that here's what comes to mind, and I'm not sure this really directly answers the question, but I'll share it anyway. I was appointed as what they call a consumer privacy ombudsman in the bankruptcies of Chrysler and GM. So this is now 10 years ago or so, maybe a little more than that. So I sat in court for 2 or 3 weeks, and you heard just a never-ending parade of people, particularly dealerships, who were being told that they weren't going to be able to operate and going forward. And you had 3rd and 4th generation dealerships who were just completely out of luck as a result of the bankruptcy. And it was really heart-wrenching to hear some of those stories and then the impact that it had on those people who had built their whole lives on working under GM and Chrysler.
And you could also say the same thing about the people in those brokerage and banks that did mismanage those mortgages and never had to go to jail either. So, well, what happened to injustice for all?
Yeah. It's really remarkable that there was only one group of people. There was one Chinese bank that somebody was sentenced to jail, I think, but that was it. With all of those things, there was a lot of wrong things that led up to 2008, and it's really remarkable that nobody seems to have paid for it.
Yeah, I still can't believe that 13 years later, we're still talking about this subject and nobody has to bear the responsibility, which is why I can imagine people are so pissed off so much. I think why, we realized, I think now more than ever, we realize that doesn't matter what political party you're in, there is extremism and there is divisiveness and there is just stuff that shouldn't be happening on both sides. I think we need a hero. We haven't had one in a long time. Somebody who just decides to get out there and speak the truth, or at least address, the attempt to try to be fair. And that's it, and it doesn't exist right now when we could use it, So
we could. That may be one of the problems, is that the people with the real skills and the talent aren't necessarily going into politics. They can find ways to make money, and that's a shame.
No, and they need to fix that, because right now, in my opinion, you really need to. What's going on here? I dropped out. Hopefully, I'll come back. All right,
Yeah,
here
you're
I
back.
am. No, right now we need somebody to lead us. We're not getting leadership. Trump was extreme. He didn't do. He did pass some good laws, but he put his foot in his mouth. So that doesn't help. And then Joseph Biden, we don't know who's really running the country. I just want to see somebody do the right thing. And I, like you said, you have kids, so do I. And I would like to see somebody lead so that we know that our children are going to have a chance. I mean, right now, because of the pandemic, you know, even smart kids who want to go to school are going to be challenged.
Yeah.
There are so many people out there. Now, I love the fact that you do all this, and yet you find time to make music with some pretty heavyweight people. How did that happen?
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate. I've been able to work with a lot of really talented people. So when I was 14, I recorded an EP with a guy named Jimmy Einer, who was
He's a legend, Dirty Dancing.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
baby. Yep.
And more recently, I started recording with a guy named Jerry Harrison, who is best.
Talking Heads.
Yeah, Talking
Favorite
Heads.
band.
He's back out on tour. You should check him out. He's
Oh, yeah,
playing
he's
with
doing solo stuff.
well, he's playing with a band called Turquoise, which he also produced a couple of years ago, and some other Adrian Blue, who
Oh,
was
really?
part of Talking Heads for a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and King Crimson, I think. But Jerry is one of the more unique people I've ever met. I mean, obviously his musical credentials, go without saying. But the thing about him is I call him the Wizard of Oz. He's one of those guys.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
But he can instill belief in people.
Yeah.
He can make you believe that you can do something that you didn't think was possible.
That's a gift.
And that's a gift, right? And so I recorded my an album called The Redhead's Allegations with him about 6 or 7 years ago, but he's still been a close friend. When I'm out in the Bay Area, we catch up and have worked together in a couple of capacities. And so it's just a wonderful guy.
And so Jimmy Einer, Jerry Harrison, and then you recently recorded a remake of Rick Ocasek's In the Cars Drive with some pretty heavyweight people. Violin player Lorenzo Ponce, who has played with Sheryl Crow and Bon Jovi, Hall & Oates. So how did that happen?
Well, yeah, I met Lorenza through a group of musicians in New York City a few years ago, and she agreed to join my band. And so it's Lorenza and it's Rodney Howard on drums and Ann Klein on guitar and Malcolm Gold on bass. And all of these guys have played with some real, with the best musicians, on the planet. But the car song is a lot of fun. That'll be the second single off of an album called Two Fishes, which will the first single will be called Gold. That'll be out in August, and then September, Drive by the Cars we're going to do. And it's
I love that song. It's such a great song.
It really is a fantastic song, and
it's a standard, that song. When you hear a song that can bring you back to a particular time in your life, and the feeling and all that, and the melodic hauntedness about that song, it's haunting, that song.
Yeah, it really is. And one of the reasons I wanted to do it, I mean, obviously it's a classic song, but I thought we would be able to take it, and bring something to it. And I think we did. It's not going to be unrecognizable, but I also think it's not a carbon copy of what Rick and the boys did those years ago.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to cover a song, you don't want to do an exact replica of what was done.
Yeah.
Now you do what I do. You're a world traveler, and I travel, to me, has been the greatest classroom I've ever had. If you want to talk about school, that's the school I recommend everybody get a taste of if they can. And you've been everywhere. How many countries have you been to?
Well, I spent a ton of time in India years ago. I spent a lot of time in Nicaragua, although not lately with everything going on down there. And we spent a lot of time in Europe, and so we've been around. The last year, because of the pandemic, we've just sort of holed up here in the houseboat community of Sausalito in the Bay Area.
Right, you live in a houseboat. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's really it's a great.
Tell us about that experience. What is that like every day?
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. So it's a super comfortable 2 bedroom with a roof deck. So people think houseboat and they think small. It's not that small. It's I've got a piano here, so like that tells you, we've got an upright piano
That's
up in the
great.
living room. Yeah,
Let's take it out on the water and we'll play some tunes. Right?
yeah, it's really really cool. And
That's
one thing
great.
about Sausalito, uh, it's the only place I know on the planet that over the last year has had regular live music because people will actually play out in the boats, and
Oh,
you'll
that's
have
great.
150 people come in kayaks and little dinghies or whatever.
So get a
And
mini concert.
yeah, and I've done a couple of those, and it's just so much fun.
That's great. Um, now, now, when you go out on the road, I mean, do you spend time in these places or is it a blur?
Oh, I try to spend time in a lot of the places that we play
Mhm.
because each little community has its own thing, and it's just when you get a sense of the community that you're in, I find it really inspiring when I write.
Mhm. And when you travel to areas where the technology isn't so good, how does it affect you? Because I remember being in China when they would not let you go on the internet. And I was so used to sending out tons of emails every day. And suddenly I had to write each one by fax and I had to write them by hand. And I'm like, technology is really good. Oh, I appreciate it now.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah.
ever been through something like that?
So it's funny. Recently, we did a month in New Mexico, and good old US of A, and it's a wonderful place to visit. We were just outside of Santa Fe. But the thing that nobody realizes is if you're not in Santa Fe, you don't have internet access.
Mhm.
Like just driving 15 minutes outside of Santa Fe, and my
Right.
phone doesn't work anymore.
I hope we never have an event, a global event, where we lose all our ability, to do our email and to be on the internet. Because man, I watch too many science fiction shows, where suddenly, there's no internet service. I've seen my daughters go through withdrawal, going, "What do I do?" I go, "You're gonna have a conversation with your father." No.
Yeah, they think it's punishment, right? They
They
want to.
do. They
Yeah.
do. They are very. I have twin girls, and my youngest Annabelle. They're a minute apart. She is a internet like wonderkin. She has the alien computer, and she does a lot of film editing, but she moves on that system so fast. I'm like, I can't imagine. I think she might go into gaming, which would be kind of interesting because that's really becoming the big thing. And NFTs, the art world. People are paying millions of dollars for a JPEG. Maybe you can be the first music NFT.
Yeah, that would be pretty wild. It's I thought there was a Bruce Springsteen NFT that went for millions of dollars already. And so
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple out there. I think it's going to become more and more prevalent. Everything is evolving into the digital world. So soon, I'm wondering what they're going to do with the paper dollar. The paper currency. I mean, everyone poo-poos Bitcoin, and Ethereum and all that, but we all know where it's headed. Soon
yeah,
you'll
yeah.
wake up and you'll be like automobile, and the car will show up, and you just we say Alexa's listening.
Yeah.
I go, Alexa, will you be able to make me coffee? I have to think about it. um, if there's one thing that you hope to see in the world and after this pandemic in terms of music and also in terms of technology, are there things that you're aspiring to that you want to see happen?
Well, I think for music, I'm like everybody else. I'm waiting for the things to really open up and to be playing out, and it looks like that's happening. Slowly but surely, and
Yeah, but
depending.
that Delta variant is scaring me.
Yeah, it really is.
You
Yeah,
know?
because my wife and I have been vaccinated, but you're now hearing that it gets in through the kids, and then
Well, that's
and,
how the adults get it. But the thing that I'm worried about, my wife and I have a disagreement about it. She sees one bad article and she's like, "No, we can't do this." And then the other argument is that, well, if you don't have an underlying condition, you'll have mild symptoms. But do you really want to test that? So
yeah,
the mother always wins. For me to put my foot down, I don't think it's going to end well. So I think they're going to go as long as they can. School starts September 7th. So I've got a little more time to kind of convince them. They need about a month. Are you going to vaccinate your kids?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but she's only 18 months. And so
Right. Yeah.
I think, by early next year, there'll be something for her, and we'll almost certainly vaccinate her.
Well, anyway, it's great to have Alan Chapell. Thank you so much for coming on The Alarmists. And it was very interesting talking about our privacy. I'm sure after we talk, there'll be an ad popping up on your Facebook for The Alarmists.
Fantastic. I look forward to clicking
All
it.
right, man. You be good. You be safe. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Jesse.
All right,
Take
man.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.